Chapter 13, the Integrative Model. The Integrative Model provides a structure that helps teachers guide students in a process describing, comparing, categorizing, analyzing, examining relationships, and making generalizations about organized bodies of knowledge. It is also scaffolds students' learning through a series of 4 different phases, which I will discuss coming into the next section. Okay, now the integrative model is a purpose-driven instructional model that supports students as they develop to learn independently using many different thinking type skills that they have. One of the good things about integrative model is it's an organized body of knowledge that varies depending on the context. So you can use it in any subject. Some of it is some of the steps for this and analyzing it of the information is so large it cannot be easily understood without intentional analyzing. 2, presents in some types of structure or order or manner. 3, not new, already analyzed process is already understood by the learner. Some sources that they use, that teachers and stuff use, typically are textbooks, databases, spreadsheets for like in math or science. During this, students are guided by the teacher as they learn to explore and analyze and interpret information in these materials. They process the materials, communicate, and then draw their own conclusions to generate a new understanding and ideas. So that helps them question and connect things that are meaningful to them. Now I said something about the 4 phases. In the first phase, students describe, compare, and search for patterns in the context that represents an organized body of knowledge. So like you would look for, in a textbook, you'd look for a pattern of when does this keep repeating? Or in a math book, do you see how multiplication and addition are together because addition and multiplication are like brother and sister. You can't have one without the other. In the second phase, the student explains the identification, similarities, and differences by examining content more closely. This is where you get to like do the Venn diagrams and the graphic organizers that we've been talking about, where you can see the differences and slap them together for visual learners in an organized thing, or you can just pull them out and do a T-chart or something like that. The third phase, students hypothesize and generalize about the content, which, as you know, it's where they make an educated guess on what they think could happen, couldn't happen, and or predict what is going to happen. And then in the fourth phase, students are brought to analyze the content. They form conclusions about and synthesize their content knowledge or their understanding. They also demonstrate how their understanding might be considered in a larger context. So that's like taking a word like ruler, which you can use in math where it measures stuff, or you can use it in history where you can connect it with somebody who is so powerful it rules over somebody. So they can demonstrate the 2 differences with that. Okay, now let's get to the history of this model. It was a theory that was based on constructionalism, which to me is interesting, but there's stuff to it because I think that this was a really good way to do it because they get to demonstrate and apply their knowledge like they would in Bloom's taxonomy and stuff like that. But the history came back to developed by teacher educators Don Cowcan and Paul Egan. And it builds on the importance done by somebody who we talked about in previous chapters, Hildy Taba. Taba was the one who made the Taba development project and several teaching models that, like I said, we talked about before. This model, the teacher plays a crucial role in work and supports student thinking. He or she acts as the facilitator whose questions assist students as they examine evidence, analyze patterns, and make sense of relationships and draw conclusions from organized bodies of. So basically, it's how they organize everything and the way they think when they write or are written and how they take notes and stuff like that. It helps give them that organization. Like I said, it was based on constructivism, asserts the learning and activity process, which learners use sensory input to construct meaning out of experiences. This is also broken down into some important principles, which are learners need to do something to engage. That's called the active learning, which it's like where you add fun to it and gamifying stuff and making them want to learn more. People learn as they learn, which means they all learn a different way. There's no one size fits all. And the crucial action of constructing meaning is mental. That means they have to make it out and make the connection. Like the stove is hot, I can tell somebody that, a younger person out in their, they could be like, why? I don't think so, and then touch it and get burnt. That's where they have to, all three of them come into play. Okay, when should the integrative model be applied and why? Now, one of the things that I pulled out of the text that I thought was important was where it says it can be used in any grade level, but primary grade teachers will need to provide considerable scaffolding through guided questions, collection, and analysis of data, and categorization of information. And then it says that this model can also be best applied for teaching units of instruction and incorporate conceptual knowledge, foster critical thinking, and involve in making connections. So basically, you have to start out at square one and do a lot of the work for them, give them the information and give them all that, so then they can apply it some way to see how they like it and how it goes for them. Okay, now what are the steps in integrative modeling? On page 353, it gives you this cool little chart, figure 13.2, where it says the different phases, the teacher role and the student role. In the first one, it says describe, compare, and search for patterns. Students record data in graphic organizers, like previously mentioned. In the second one, explain similarities and differences. This is where they write out and tell you the differences and similarities. Hypothesize out and come up with different content conditions. The students hypothesize of possible outcomes and generalize to form broad relationships. They use their understanding between their context that they just found and make connections and stuff between that. Now, that is my half, so now Monica will take over. Thank you, and have a great day.
So this is how you plan using the integrative model. You want to ensure compatibility of your learning goals. It's highly effective when addressing critical understandings, and this is just generalizations. So it's the big idea of your lesson. And it also helps with the development of critical thinking skills, which is something that is hard for students to pick up on, so it's better to practice those as you go. You want to identify these critical understandings. That means that you're going to scaffold and select appropriate resources. You want to make sure that your resources are going to work for your students, because if they don't, then the lesson kind of doesn't matter. You want to develop graphic organizers. This requires students to record their learning. That way they have something to look back on if they need that information again and they just forgot. You want to create questions based on revised Bloom's taxonomy. This means that you're increasing your level and you're also asking different things of them with each question that you make. And you want to carefully select your resources for analysis, because your high quality resources equals a better learning experience for your students, which means it's something that they will remember and recall on in their future learning experiences. And next, we're going to talk about differentiating with the integrative model. This is thinking about your source of graphic organizer, whether they're going to create their own, you're going to co-create with them, or you're going to use one that's already made. The advantage of creating their own and co-creating one with them is that you're going to be able to use what they know and what you know that they need to your advantage. The next is students select the materials based on interest and readiness level. This means that you're giving them the graphic organizer, and then they're going out there and finding things that are interesting to them and is at their level, which means that it's not too hard or too difficult. Also, you're going to know the needs of your students. This is a basic concept in teaching that we know and we've used in all of our different models. We need to know what they need in order to be successful. You're also going to vary the types of questions that you use. This means you're going to use open and closed questions. And then you're going to allow many different products that students can create to show their understanding. This can be a video, a song, a presentation, a paper, whatever they're most comfortable using to show that they understand what the lesson was about. Go. All right, and the last one is using technology in the integrative model. This is online databases, search engines, or directories can help find resources. So you can either do this ahead of time, or you can have your students do it on their own Chromebooks. That way they can find things that are at their interest level. There's also video, graphics, and audio to keep it engaging for your students. This can be done in presentations, throughout the lesson, or at the beginning of the lesson, so just throughout. And you can also develop graphic organizers online, like timelines. It keeps it very organized and it's easier for the students to interact. You can also use online survey tools and audience response systems. These are things like Kahoot and SurveyMonkey. They are fun and colorful ways to get your students engaged, and you can also gauge where they are at in the lesson and what you need to go over again. And on page 373, there's a lesson plan that lets you see this model implemented.